Alright, this is Job 2 in the MacArthur Study Bible and also the Endearing Word Commentary. Alright, so let's begin. Alright. Now, the sections for chapter 2 vary in the MacArthur Study Bible and in Endearing Word. There's only 2 sections, but there's several in the Endearing Word for this chapter, so I may follow the Endearing Word pattern. Alright. Alright, so the first section is the first 3 verses, but for MacArthur it's actually the first 10. For MacArthur, it's Satan attacks Job's health, and then for the first 3, we'll focus on those. God boasts again over his servant Job. Alright. We'll go ahead and start. Again, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them to present himself before the Lord. And the Lord said to Satan, "From where do you come?" Satan answered the Lord and said, "From going to and fro on the earth, and from walking back and forth on it." And then the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job, that there is no one like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, one who fears God and shuns evil, and still holds fast to his integrity, although you indicted me against him to destroy him without a cause?" Alright, and then it'll continue on, but I'm going to focus on these verses real quick. Alright, so the second act of the heavenly scene. Yep, so the scene changes again in the heavenly court, where the angels come before the Lord, and Satan was also present, having been again searching on the earth for victims to assault. Yep, so that's what you got. So that's what MacArthur says. Now Endearing Word says this. Again, there was a day when the sons of God came. This again indicates that Satan and the certain angelic beings, fallen as well as faithful, have somewhat open access to God's presence in heaven. And the Lord said to Satan, Now, the dialogue recorded here was completely unknown to Job, though perhaps if he were the author of the book, at a later time God would have revealed this heavenly behind-the-scenes conversation with him. I don't know. Yep. And he still holds fast to his integrity. Yep, up until this point, the second dialogue recorded followed the same pattern shown in Job 1, verses 6 through 8. Job 1, 6 through 8. That's when you have a similar dialogue. Satan, from where do you come? I'm going to and fro back on the earth. Yep. Have you considered my servant Job? That same dialogue. So God used that repetition basically to impress upon Satan the futility of his first attack against Job. Just to show that he tried to get Job and to get him to turn away from God, and it failed. And God affirmed, going back to MacArthur, and God affirmed that Job had won round 1. He held fast to his integrity. He held fast to his integrity, although you incited me against him to destroy him without a cause. So back to, let me start with MacArthur. God uses the same expression the adversary used against Job, for nothing or without cause. The message behind God's turn of words is that the adversary is the guilty party in this case. Not Job, who had suffered all the disaster. Not Job, who suffered all the disaster without any personal cause. He had done nothing to incur this pain and loss, though it was massive. This issue was primarily a matter of conflict between God and Satan. And this is a crucial statement, because when Job's friends tried to explain why all the disasters had befallen him, they pretty much always put the blame on Job. Grasping this assessment from God, that Job had not been punished for something but suffered for nothing related to him personally, is a crucial key to this story. Yeah, the suffering was not Job's fault. Period. He had nothing and he did nothing to bring about this. Sometimes suffering can be caused by divine purposes unknowable to us. Yep. A lot of times we don't know the specific reason. Yeah, but the Lord always uses suffering for his purposes, whatever purposes those may be, and ultimately for him to get glory, so that people would know that he's the one and only true God. Alright, now going back to Enduring Word. So, what Enduring Word had to say with God telling Satan, you incited me against him. It's saying that this shows that both God and Satan understood that the attack only could come to Job because God allowed it. Although God did not actively send the Sabaeans and the Chaldeans and the fire and the wind, they could only come by his permission. So God actually did not do those things to Job. The devil did those things, but only God. But those things God allowed the devil to do. Yeah. But God himself ultimately did not do those. Yeah, to destroy him without a cause. Now the idea is not that cause was absent in either God or Satan. They both had something they wanted to prove and establish in the whole account. However, there was no sinful cause in Job that prompted the calamities that befell him. So Job did nothing wrong to cause all this to happen to him. So that's a very critical element in the story, as MacArthur said. Alright, and now you get to Satan's reply to God, verses 4 through 6. Skin and skin. So Satan answered the Lord and said, skin for skin. Yes, all that a man has he will give for his life. But stretch out your hand now and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will surely curse you to your face. And the Lord said to Satan, behold, he is in your hand, but spare his life. Alright, now skin for skin. MacArthur. Satan contended that what he had done to Job so far was just touching the skin and scratching the surface. So Job endured all the loss that he had had, even the lives of his children, but would not endure the loss of his own well-being. So if God allowed Satan to make the disaster a personal matter of his own physical body, the adversary contended Job's faith would fail. So basically, you did all these things to, Job's possessions and his family and his servants and all that, but you really didn't do anything to him as a person himself, to his own physical body. So if you do something actually against him, something personal, then he'll definitely turn against you. So the devil thought. Alright. And then here's a note from Enduring Word. Some other notes. Skin for skin. Yes, all that a man had, he will give. All that a man has, he will give for his life. Satan here asserted that Job failed to curse God only because he was afraid that if he did, it would bring personal punishment from God. And Satan argued that the problem with the prior attacks is that none of them touched Job directly, but only the things next to or outside of Job, his family and his possessions. So you actually got to get Job directly, and then he'll curse you. In Job's ancient culture, this is a quote, from a guy, Lawson. A lot of these quotes are going to come from a lot of the same theologians, I guess, that Gusick quotes in his commentary, so there will probably be a lot of the same names. Alright, in Job's ancient culture, skin for skin was a bartering term meaning to trade one skin for another. The devil's accusing Job of being willing to risk the skin of his children and the livestock in order to protect his own skin. Yeah, according to this Lawson guy. Alright, and then this guy Trapp says, any skin for his own cattle, servants, and children may be easily parted with by him to save himself in a whole skin and to keep himself whole. Alright. But when it came down to it, Abraham betrayed his wife to save his life. David forsook his sanity to save his life. And Peter denied Jesus to save his own life. There's certainly some truth to this statement. All that a man has, he will give for his life. Alright. Touch his bone and his flesh, and he will surely curse you to your face. Satan insisted that if the attack was made against Job directly, if some calamity came upon Job's body, then Job would certainly curse God. Alright. And back to Lawson again. Satan suggested to God a new test for Job, physical suffering. Pain can weaken our resistance and make everything look and feel worse than it really is. More than one person has withstood tragedy only to fall apart under the onslaught of pain. Yeah, so maybe you could withstand tragedy, but probably you really can't withstand bodily pain usually. Alright, and God will allow the devil to strike Job's body, but he cannot kill him. Yep, you spare his life. Yeah, the Lord sovereignly limited the adversary, although death seemed preferable. Yeah, and Job actually ended up believing that to be the case, as well as his wife. Yeah, and that's from MacArthur. Yeah, I mean, in the next chapter, he's going to curse the day that he was born, so. Alright. And with God, again, with this God, he's in your hand, but spare his life, back to enduring word. God again lowered the hedge that protected Job, but he did not eliminate it. Satan was given greater allowance to attack Job, but not unlimited allowance. Yep, as the reformer Martin Luther said, even the devil is God's devil. Yeah, the devil's not in control. He can only do what God allows him to do. Yeah. He can only, God allows him to do things, for his own greater purposes. Whatever those are, we don't know. Yeah. But he always means suffering for the good of his people. So, anyway, even if at the time it doesn't seem like it. Alright, moving on. Verses 7 through 8. Job suffers affliction and shows integrity. Yeah, Job's smitten with painful and disgusting sores. Yeah, that's what it says in Enduring Word. Alright. So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord and struck Job with painful boils from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head, and took for himself a potsherd, with which to scrape himself while he sat in the midst of ashes. Alright. So MacArthur says, this appears to be an exceptional case with no exact parallel in the scriptures. Now, in the Gospels, demons caused physical problems whenever they dwelled within people, but this is not the case here. God's permissive will operated for purposes Job cannot know, and God was hidden from him with all the reasons for his suffering. Alright. But again, for the devil is the one that is actually tormenting Job, not God. Yeah, God has allowed the devil to do it, but he can't do it to unlimited extent. Yeah. If he could kill him, he probably would, but God's not allowing him to do that. Alright. Painful boils. Although the nature of Job's affliction cannot be diagnosed exactly, it produced extreme emotional drama. And one cannot fully understand Job's conversations throughout the book without considering the extraordinary physical distress he endured in a day without medication or any pain relief. His boils would have been similar to those of the Egyptians, and Hezekiah. Yeah, the boils breaking out in the Egyptians in Exodus 9. Yep. And suffering terribly, Job took for himself to where the lepers go to the ash heap outside the city, where he scraped at his sores with a broken piece of pottery, perhaps breaking them open to release the infection. Yeah, probably very disgusting. Yeah, and I wonder if some of these boils could have been like blisters, probably. Yeah, probably. Probably popping them with the pottery, and then probably the pus and blood coming out. Yeah, very gross, I'm sure. Yep. Alright, well, here's a little bit more from Enduring Word about this. So, struck with painful boils, this disease that came upon Job was specifically meant to drive Job into great despair, that he would curse God. Were we not surprised that the attack against Job was so severe, with the painful boils and massive, from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head, and pretty much the whole body getting struck with boils? Alright, here's some more notes here. We are challenged to see that Satan has the power to attack mankind in ways we perhaps previously did not perceive. Perhaps we saw that Satan could inspire others to attack Job, and could direct natural calamity as an attack against Job, as was seen in chapter 1. And now we see that disease and physical suffering can come against Job as an attack from Satan. And another example of this is in Luke 13:17, where Jesus revealed that a woman who had been afflicted for 18 years was actually afflicted with the spirit of infirmity and was bound by Satan in her condition. Alright, here's a quote from another theologian, Anderson. The exact nature of Job's ailment has been debated. Some kind of acute Demetitis, however you say that, spreading everywhere and developing infections with darkened and peeling skin, constantly erupting pustules. And that would manifest the pruritus and paralysis heightened in 2:7. Yeah, you can just go look this up on the commentary. It's hard to pronounce some of these words. Alright. And one of the curses that God promised to the disobedient Israel was this, in Deuteronomy 28:27. The Lord will strike you with the boils of Egypt, with tumors, and with scab, and with the itch, from which you cannot be healed. Now this may have well been that same affliction that Job suffered from, and it reminds us also that Job had every reason to feel cursed by God, and he appeared that way to others also, even though, of course, this did not come because he sinned. So, as was said, this has nothing to do with him being punished for sin. Alright. But whatever the exact diagnosis of Job's condition, taken together, his medical problems were significant. And other passages in this book tell us more about what Job suffered. And these will be some verses coming up in future videos, Lord willing. So he suffered intense pain, and this is from Job 30:17. My bones are pierced in me at night, and my gnawing pains take no rest. Peeling and darkened skin, 30:30. My skin grows black and falls from me. Pus-filled erupting sores, which I was thinking probably, that was the case just several minutes ago. Yeah, with, him probably scraping himself and then pus coming out of the sores, probably popping them and all that, maybe. Alright, Job 7:5b. Yeah, my flesh is caked with worms and dust, my skin is cracked and breaks out afresh. Yep, and then here's another thing that he suffered by the looks of it. Maybe anorexia, yeah, or emaciation, however you say that. Yeah, my bone clings to my skin and to my flesh. Job 19:20. Yep, fever. Yeah, my bones burn with fever. Job 30:30. Yep, depression. I loathe my life. I will not live forever. Job 7:16. And my heart is in turmoil and cannot rest. Days of affliction confront me, and I go about mourning, but not in the sun. Yeah, Job 30:27-28. Weeping. My face is flushed with weeping. Job 16:16a. Sleeplessness. When I lie down, I say, when shall I rise, and the night be ended? Job 7:4. Nightmares. And then you scare me with dreams and terrify me with visions. Job 7:14. Putrid breath. My breath is offensive to my wife. Job 19:17. Difficulty breathing. He will not allow me to catch my breath. Job 9:18. Failing vision. Oh, my eyelids is the shadow of death. Job 16:16b. Rotting teeth. I have escaped by the skin of my teeth. Job 19:20. Haggard looks. When they raised their eyes from afar, they did not recognize him, which is actually in this chapter. Yeah, Job 2:12. Painful swollen sores all over his body, as I just read. Painful sores from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head, verse 7. And then intense itching. Picked up that broken piece of pottery to scrape himself, verse 8. And the condition lasted for months. Oh, that I were as in months past. Oh, that I were as in months past. Job 29:2. And I have been allotted months of futility. Job 7:3. Alright, and he took for himself a potsherd with which to scrape himself. And Job dealt with this painful affliction to the best of his ability and sat in a mournful place. In the midst of ashes probably means the city dump, where the garbage was burned. So he sat on a burned heap, probably. Yep. He took him. All right, here's a quote by a guy Poole. Poole. Yeah, he took him a potsherd, partly to allay the itch which his ulcers caused, and partly to squeeze out or take away the matter which was under them. The purulent matter, I guess, the pus and all that. Which was under them or flowed from them and was the great cause of his torment. Though somewhat messy, the ashes were perhaps the most sterile place a man with sores could sit. The aspect may be coincidental, but in the ancient, by practice, many found them to be physically advantageous. Quote by a guy, Smick. All right. Yep, so he would scrape the sores with the broken piece of pottery to release the infection and all that. Alright, and then you get to verses 9-10. Job holds fast to his integrity before his wife. And then his wife said to him, "Do you still hold fast to your integrity? Curse God and die." But he said to her, "You speak as one of a foolish woman speaks. Shall we indeed accept good from God, and shall we not accept adversity?" And all this Job did not sin with his lips. And Job's wife... hang on. I'll read what MacArthur said. And through all this, Job remained faithfully Job's faith remained strong in the confusion, so that his wife could not accuse him of insincerity as Satan had, and her argument was in effect this: let go of your piety and curse God, and then he's going to end your life for blaspheming. I.e., death under those conditions would have been preferable to living. She basically added temptation, she added temptation to affliction because she just advised him to sin. If you just curse God, you'll die, and you're just not going to suffer anymore. Is it really worth it to just hold on to the faith and just continue to suffer? Come on. Alright, and I'll get to what Endearing Word said. Job's wife had become a proverbial example of a cruel and unsupported, sharp-tongued wife. Yet some allowance must be made considering her losses in the previous days. She also lost her children and her wealth, and so she shouldn't be too harshly judged. Alright, and the Septuagint actually puts more words into the mouth of Job's wife. This is a quote by Bullinger. How long wilt thou hold out and say, Behold, I wait yet a little while, expecting the hope of my deliverance? For behold, thy memorial is cut off from the earth, even thy sons and thy daughters, the pangs and pains of my womb, which I bore in vain with sorrows, and thou myself sittest down to spend the nights in the open air among the corruption of worms, and I am a wanderer and a servant from place to place and house to house, waiting for the setting of the sun, that I may rest from my labors and my pains, which now beset me. Now curse God and die. Alright. And then Lawson says, she cannot bear to see her husband suffer like this. Her heart, already crushed by the loss of her 10 children, is now without hope. She's saying, curse God and he'll strike you dead too. Then you can escape this pain. Death would be better than this, basically. Yep. Yeah, renounce, she says, God and die, leaving the unprofitable service of this God. Leave the unprofitable service of this God. Renounce, she says, God and die. Leave the unprofitable service of this God, who has left thee to so undeserved a fate. Leave him and quit life, a life that is nothing worth living for. Quote from this guy, Bradley. Not knowing the limitation God had put on the accuser, Job's wife at this point diagnosed the disease as incurable and recommended that he curse God and die. Schmick said that. Alright, and then Job will respond. You speak as one of the foolish women speaks. And this was a wisely worded rebuke to Job's wife. He did not accuse her of being a foolish woman, but of speaking like one of the foolish women. He indicated that this was out of character for her. Alright, quote from Anderson. He did not call her wicked, merely foolish, that is, lacking in discernment. She thinks that God has treated Job badly and deserves a curse, and Job finds nothing wrong with what has happened to him. And Mason comments on Satan's strategy here. He sows strife and succeeds in turning the couple against each other. She ridicules his religion, and he calls her a fool. A degree of alienation sets in which just in itself would have been very likely to have been the worst trial these two ever had passed through in their married life. So probably a strategy that the devil trying to turn his own wife against him, according to this Mason guy. But he says, you're being foolish. Let me see what MacArthur says. Not meaning being silly or ridiculous, but acting as one who rejects God or God's revealed will. And this word is used of the unwise in Psalms and in Proverbs. She is not seen nor heard of again in this book, except indirectly in the very last chapter. Alright, and then Job goes on to say, shall we not accept good from God, and shall we not accept adversity? So going back to endearing word, Job again shows his wisdom in this reply. He recognized that God does not owe us good. Yeah, we don't deserve good at all. We're sinners. We deserve nothing but his wrath. So anything good that he gives us is just a gift. Yeah, he gives what is good as a gift that we should accept. Accordingly, if adversity comes to us, and we are wise to see that even in adversity there may be a gift that we should accept. Yep, and alright. And this is also from MacArthur here. And Job lived out and explained the text of Deuteronomy 29:29, which says the secret things belong to the Lord. His words and his deeds demonstrate his confidence in God and vindicated God's confidence in him. Yep, and all that he said, he did not sin with his lips. Yep, he did not sin with his lips. Alright, and going back to endearing word. And this is another remarkable statement to the credit of Job. He did not sin in his response to either his God or his wife. And all this is a broad statement, meaning up to this point Job had not sinned at all in what he said. And this is important to note, because some say that these calamities came on Job because of his negative confessions that he made, supposedly in verses 5 in chapter 1 and Job 3:25, which says, Job 3:25, for the thing I feared or greatly feared has come upon me, and what I dreaded has happened to me. And the statement makes it clear that Job did not sin with his lips, and certainly not in the case of negative confession, which this idea of negative and positive confession, that's part of the word of faith and prosperity gospel teaching, that ultimately if you say or think good things, you'll attract good things into your life. But if you say negative things and think negative things will come into your life. So, for word of faith people, they would say the reason that Job is suffering is because he spoke negative things. So really, the suffering is Job's fault, even though that's not true. Yep. So that's how it would work. But of course, that's not the case. And this verse makes that clear. He did not sin with his lips in what he said, and sin did not bring this calamity upon him. So very, very clear. Alright, and now you get to the final verses in this chapter. So this is going to be a much shorter video. Alright. You get to this. Now when Job's 3 friends heard of all the adversity that had come upon him, each one came from his own place. Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite. For they had made an appointment together to come and mourn with him and to comfort him. And when they raised their eyes from afar, they did not recognize him. And they lifted their voices and wept. Each one tore his robe and sprinkled dust on his head toward heaven. So they sat down with him on the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and no one spoke a word to him, for they saw that his grief was very great. All right. And I'll look at MacArthur's notes here. Here is one of the most moving scenes in this whole story, as Job's friends came to comfort him and commiserate with him in his pain, and they expressed all the traditional gestures of grief. All right, so who were these friends? You had Eliphaz the Temanite. Now, most likely the city Teman was a city of Edom. All right. And then Bildad the Shuhite. The Shuhites, they were descendants of Abraham through his second wife, Keturah, in Genesis 25. And then Zophar the Namathite, however you say that. Now, a resident of an unknown location, probably in Edom or Arabia, although some had suggested that Nama on the Edomite border, Joshua 15:41, maybe. All right, so that's where they're from. All right, and when the three friends, all right, now go into endearing word. When the three friends heard of all of this adversity that had come upon him, each one came from his own place. So this passage introduces three remarkable friends of Job. Their names were Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, and these men came to Job in his hour of need, to come and mourn with him and to comfort him. Yep, their intended goal was good and noble. They came to be with him, to come, to share in his sorrow, to mourn with him, and to bring some relief to Job, comfort him. Yeah, as you should do when someone is grieving. All right, and they did not recognize him. Yeah, the boils left Job with the horrific, disfigured appearance. Upon seeing Job, his three friends were instantly gripped with grief and mourning as if one had died. All right, and then they sat down with him on the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and no one spoke a word to him. And that's a wonderful display of comfort and a common cause with Job. They shared in his afflicted state, acting as if they were similarly afflicted. They offered no statement except for their compassionate presence. And sometimes that's probably really what needs to happen really in tragedy. It's best if you pretty much just say nothing, but you're just there for that person in the time of need. So, I heard it said in a video, I'm trying to remember what channel it was from, but about a Christian couple who went through a lot of suffering, but yet they had friends who were there that came with them from their church and comforted them greatly. And they pretty much said, and then the husband said that, less words or wise words or something like that. That it's actually a lot better for you to really say nothing in the time of trouble. Yeah, and just be there for the person. Yep. And share in their grief. Yep. That would probably go a longer way than, bringing up some theology. All right. And at this point, after this point in the book of Job, there begins 35 chapters of discussion between Job and his friends. Yet all that discussion must be put in the context of the genuine love and the concern that these friends had for Job. And there was a sense in which they earned their right to speak by their sacrificial display of compassion, even though what they're going to say is ultimately going to do no good. And it's really just going to make Job feel worse. All right, now while it is true that Job suffered more at the hands of these friends ultimately than by the attacks of the foe, yet some recognition must be made of the goodness of the men, according to this Morgan guy. They are to be admired because they came to Job. They are to be admired because they wept for and with Job. They are to be admired because they sat in silence with Job for 7 days. And they are to be admired because they intended all the best for Job, and they were persistent and wanting and doing what they thought was best for Job. And they are to be admired because they spoke their opinion about Job and his condition to Job himself, instead of speaking about him to others. Instead of gossiping. But of course they would be wrong in what they're saying. All right. And let me see what MacArthur said when they sat down with them 7 days, 7 nights, and no one spoke a word to him, for they saw that his grief was very great. And this expression actually meant that his disease produced pain that was still increasing. The agony was so great, his friends were speechless for a week. Yep. Alright, and then I'll finish out this chapter here with these final notes from Enduring Word. And they believed him to be suffering for heavy crimes now. And seeing him suffer so much, they were not willing to add to his distress by invectives or reproach. Job himself broke first silence, and then they would respond, according to this Clark guy, and then you get this Bradley guy again. We leave Job and his friends seated in silence. There is calm all around them, but we feel that the air is heavy and that there's tempest in the sky, and we shall hear the storm burst and the thunder roll when next we meet. All right. And Lord willing, if we meet next time, I'll get through chapter 3, and we'll get to see what continues to happen. But until then, Lord willing, may the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all.